Truly, a new threshold state of being, a new opportunity to co-create. Yes, a big yes and a big hug there. And the one thing I've noticed in assisting people as they are on the cusp of, just call it you might say it's an initiation experience of the ego actually relaxing and the soul energy, the infinite energy coming forward.
I think that's a beautiful way to describe it.
There's a tenderness there. There's an availability that at times can seem a little overwhelming to the one who's experiencing it. And our outer world seems to have within it the energies that would conspire to keep us contained, to keep us operating in that zone where the hierarchies and the dogmas can be preserved. And I don't believe in this as a conspiracy as much as I notice that once things are created, they have a tendency to be self-preserving. And so this reality that you're calling inside the eggshell, this experience, the incubation experience, that people are popping out at different times. And I feel like I want to give them a little hug and say, you're okay. Keep going.
Well, because we're living in a world that really doesn't support that. And so it takes courage. You break free of those beliefs.
They truly must anchor in their mastery.
Absolutely.
Or they look to put the shell back on their head.
Right, because it's a courageous, to fully step into the blessing that you are is a courageous act. And then once you're on the other side, you realize so much more.
Then co-creation takes a whole new dimension.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I suppose the chicken also thinks that the egg is conspiring against it when it's time to get out. But you're right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Why is that shell so hard?
The powers that think they're in control of the world are, in fact, the ones that like the predictability, because anything that is predictable is controllable.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and what I also like that you said, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, is that the way of the heart is idealized in New Age communities.
Yes.
But unless one has done the self-work to come home to yourself, and, in my teachings, one of the primary tenets is the inner sub-personalities expressing and balanced, and each one contributing the inner child, the inner nurturer, the inner warrior, the inner sage. But unless you're balanced within, which is the secret to good relationships, and it's the secret to good aloneness, the heart is as much a tyrant as the brain.
I'm applauding.
Its neediness dictates your choices.
Now that is an opportunity for an aha for many people.
And I love that aha being brought up.
The great traditions, meaning the dominant traditions on the planet, at some point in their teachings, they all say, go to the heart. And yet, the heart that is embraced is not the heart of freedom.
Right.
It's the heart of non-resistance.
Right. It's the heart, or the heart of conformity, or there's safety in conformity. Look at, going back to something you mentioned earlier, which I love, when you were talking about how you were, the information and the beauty that you were sharing with the planet during the 2012 times, that how popular and I must use the word profitable it was for so many beings, so many people to jump on the doom and gloom bandwagon. And this is an energy that is propagated, that is in the planetary thought body. And so when we go to our heart, the reality, I really enjoy the way you've been expressing this. We see that as basically the beginning rather than the end. It's that wholeness of the heart. It's we like to describe it as a propeller. There's so many people that don't balance their love with their wisdom. Instead, they become all heart and basically become a whipping post for the planet. That you find these people that believe that they're heart-centered, or they're all
move right back into the victim
because they're out of balance. It's like, I'm just a victim with a big heart. And this is a very important issue that so few people are willing to discuss. And I really hold nothing but the greatest respect and love for you that you're talking about this in such a beautiful way, because we can only free ourselves. We can assist people to remember themselves to freedom, and these are certainly ways to do that.
I uncovered something recently that I found was quite extraordinary, because let's take what you just said a step further. And what is it that people are revering? They're revering light and love. But light and love are themselves the absolute origin of duality, because the subatomic particles of light and frequency or love, they're binary. They have a little wobbly cross in the lower levels of density, and then they have this sort of a overlapping vesica Pisces with two spheres as you go into more etheric realms, but they are still binary. They are at the very subatomic particle level. They are divided. And this, I've tracked subatomic matter now since actually 2007 in January. I began with that. And I realized that when you go from the separation consciousness to the oneness, yes, you must, but you are still dealing with the underlying building blocks of existence being dualistic. So what then is there in the allness? And again, like you said, my brother, at some point your words just can't describe what you're seeing there. But there is a form, we can call it matterless matter, simply because it's not electromagnetic. It's the harmony of both components. And I found that it fluidly forms to the individual's intent. It doesn't create the tyranny of form that we find with building blocks made of light and love, the sacred cows of the New Age community. If you look at how does matter form, at the very primordial stages of the Big Bang, spreading matter across space, a designated space, and it ending up as individuations, it clusters from frequency. The way a spider would sit in the middle of its web and it spread its glue all nicely all over its web, but now it will get stuck itself. So it plucks the strings of its web and they cluster into little droplets of glue in a pattern that the spider then runs in between as he goes to get his moth. The matter of allness does not cluster. It doesn't cluster from frequency, because it lives beyond light and love. So whatever we hold on to as our sacred cow of the moment, the advice is at least to hold on lightly.
Hold on lightly. I love that. The thing that pops through on the center of my screen right now is that people are in the habit of identifying with, and now fill in the blank. If they're identifying with the egoic self or the emotional body or the wisdom body or the inner child or the sage, etc., the habit of identification with creates a self-defeating evolutionary step, yet a necessary one in order to be launched. And what you're describing is, well, let me just say it in my own experience. I find it very difficult to be in the world at times because this actually takes more effort. And I'm using the words of density here, is that in order to interact with the levels and fields of consciousness and form and matter that we consider the world, the common world, there's actually a great surrender of personal. Well, help me with a word here.
Well, the identities that you speak of, they are truly our prison bars, and they are just another form of belief system. The belief systems come in the form of worldviews, of personal identities, of belief systems, social conditioning, but all of them basically are an entrapment. So if you are going to be going beyond that, let's just look at the subpersonalities, because it can be said that the subpersonalities are also an entrapment within. They're just that which is inner space. But they are either a tyrant or they're a tool. And if you master them, they become a tool that you use as needed, not a tool that you have to have like a calculator because you can't add up your own math, you know. So the role of the subpersonality is, in fact, to provide a temporary four-directional basis to construct inner space concepts that you then articulate in your outer space. So I know that that's a big mouthful, but what I'm really saying is that they're roles that we play with ourselves. They are not identities, because you are absolutely right. They, like any other identity, would trap our awareness.
Yes. Yeah, I thank you for that clarity. And the thing that I know that some of the listeners are thinking right now is, okay, now show me the bridge from here important. To there.
Right. That's really where we're at.
And those words are so awful, aren't they, from here to there?
But yet those are, but when we play at the level that is most broadly understood, then it also enriches more to lift.
Yeah. Yeah, and
you know that last weekend I finished a manuscript that I wrote, and I handwrite all my work because it's work that I don't know ahead of time. It comes through, and it's called The Bridge of No Time. So The Bridge of No Time was finished last weekend, and yes, indeed, I've mapped out the steps on the bridge. So I'm happy to tell you whatever it is you want me to discuss.
And we love the serendipity.
Well, I want to know, is this a toll bridge?
Oh, I'm sure there's a toll somewhere.
Is that a toll or a troll?
I don't know. It could be either. What do you think, Almine?
Well, I think there's only a price to pay when you live under duality because of the law of compensation. Yes. And that when you rise above the light and the love, the heart and the mind tyranny into the allness, there's no price to pay. So no toll bridge till you get to the other side.
Beautiful.
If I can say just 3 steps that I did that are really quite crucial. First of all, how do you get out of the identity consciousness into the oneness? Because we've identified that it would be oneness is your step to get into the allness because of that high heart gate. So how do you get through it? Well, first of all, there is this vitally important part of releasing judgment by recognizing that if anything exists, it has a role to play. And if you look at the yin and the yang, which you spoke about, anything that symbolically, I have not translated thousands and thousands of scrolls and plates of records since 2006. They hover in front of me. We've been able to photograph them, and it's where my work comes from. And I've noticed that whenever these sigils or symbols are upside down to one another, it means they are opposites. So they are mirrored images. Like you as a couple, you're actually not like a mirrored image, which is what the yin and yang is, like the back to front newspaper in the mirror. You're functioning as in oneness, which is not a mirrored existence, a reflection of what's within. It is an expression of what is within. Now, the sameness happens. And so you don't have to teach each other through hardship. You teach each other through inspiration, which is what you're doing. But the point being that if something is there that is a mirrored opposite, it is because we're judging it. The minute we stop judging it, it no longer becomes our opposition. It becomes our expression. So sameness happens, and it becomes our inspiration. So that is the first step, to let go of the judgment. Even if you look at a horrific event on earth that makes everybody recoil, that event would not have to be there in the form of forced change if we had indeed allowed graceful change to come in. And why don't we? Because of clinging to belief systems. Exactly. And so it's belief systems that actually causes these horrific events. So if we let go of the judgment that anything that happens has no right to exist or shouldn't exist, instead of just learning its lesson and making its need to exist obsolete, then we move into oneness. In oneness, you have stepped out of the mirrored world of the tube torus into the middle hole of the donut. You step into the middle where you become like an observer of life. That is the first stage. And in observing life, to get to the second stage where the whole engulfs the whole donut, which means you have now encompassing and included life within, you have to take self-responsibility for absolutely everything that happens in your environment. And that self-responsibility is the last step where everything is within, and you've become the sovereign of your particular reality. Each reality is like a slice in a loaf of bread. It's unique. And in your reality, you're the sovereign. So you ascend the throne of that sovereignty, and then you're ready to move through that gate.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. I absolutely resonate. Everything you're saying, I'm just like, thank you for sharing this. It's such beautiful gifts. And I know our listeners are sitting here saying, I want more.
Well, as we are getting to that time of closing the show,
exactly.
I do want to
so
talk
fast.
about more. And Almine, I know that you have I think you might call it a bit of a gateway website. It's www.spiritualjourneys.com. And when I visited that, I found there were links to lots of other places.
Absolutely. So I encourage all of you, write that down. It's just www.spiritualjourneys.com, and make a note to visit that.
And is there anything else you would like to add right now as we come to a close for today?
I wanted to gift the two of you, because you don't have time to read. I know how that is when it receives so much that who can read, right? So I wanted to gift you with a year's worth of the Calendar of Oneness. It's synchronicities to go, that aha moments. They're constant with that. And so I just, please, if you could let my office know where they should give you that link to, and as it is created, you'll be receiving it. And so I also, if I may, would like very much to gift your listeners with a $100 online course of their choice.
Wow.
Now, how would they show up for that?
Contact our office in Ohio, and any 1 month course, they're usually $100 for a month-long course online. Anyone they can choose, and just communicate that to my beautiful assistant, Jan. She's our manager there, and she will make it available.
Well, I am
Lovely.
just honored and delighted, and thank you for such beautiful gifts. I know that I've got listeners out there who are just crying and happy and delighted and feeling the gift of your love and appreciating that.
And I also want to underscore that the journey of releasing judgment, the journey of surrendering into a deeper level of truth, involves a softening of the dependency on the outer world and the inner concepts. You know, we move into that paradoxical state where support is so valued and needed, yet we grow needless, you might say.
Yes.
And so this is wonderful support to move forward, and we thank you.
And I want to remind all of our listeners, you can always give us a quick email to guest, Guest, at shriandkiraradio.com, and our assistant Briella will be happy to help you navigate to take advantage of this beautiful offer by Almine, and to offer us any questions or concerns you may have. We're always there.
And so, Almine, thank you so much for your presence and your generosity. I am
so grateful to have met you. I am very grateful.
As we are too. Feel our heart and love.
All of our listeners,
thank you.
As you take this next breath, may you know that all is truly well. Namaste.
Thank you for joining us at Shri and Kira Live. To have your questions answered, send us an email to guest@shriandkiraradio.com, and check out more information at shriandkira.com. See you next week. Namaste.